Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa and today's video is going to be very useful and helpful for teachers and language tutors, as well as for people who are learning a new language by themselves. Why? Because in this video I'm going to talk about four main components of every language class. To begin with, it's important to mention that my lesson plan and all those four components are going to be about regular 1 hour private one-on-one class. Thank you, Leah, for being in my camera. Leah, you are amazing. Let's start with the first component of our regular 1 hour class, and it's actually a warm-up. I like to compare languages with the sports. In this case, you can do this as well. Let's say you go to the gym, and before you actually start doing the exercises, before you start using different machines, let's say, you need to warm up. You need to warm your muscles, you need to warm your bodies to avoid certain risks, to avoid certain injuries if you don't do that. So it's the same with the languages. You actually need to warm up before you start learning new material, before you start practicing, before you start doing any exercises. So we start our class with a warm-up. So first minimum 7, maximum 10 minutes, we have a warm-up. So what do we have usually during the warm-up? It's very simple. If you are a language teacher, if you're a language tutor, you can ask your student some general questions about the weather, how they spend their weekend, how are they doing today, any news, did they read any books, did they watch any movies, something just general, any general ideas, general questions. It can also help you to know more about the student, some topics, maybe what student likes the most, so it can also help you to know more about your student. Then you can also ask some questions related to the topic of your class. So for example, let's take again sports, and let's say the topic of your today's lesson is sports, and you can ask questions related to this topic. For example, you're gonna ask your student, like, do you do any sports? What do you do in your free time? Do you like winter sports activity? What is your favorite winter sport activity? So you can ask all those different questions related to the topic of your class, as well as you can check the vocabulary. For example, you gave a new vocabulary to memorize in your previous class, and you can check how the student knows this vocabulary. You can ask some questions. Let's say you had, let's make it so like beginner level. In the previous class, you gave your student a list of vocabulary to learn about the family, like who's aunt, mom, father, grandmother, sister, brother. And you ask some questions using this vocabulary, or you ask some questions so student can use this vocabulary, student can use the vocabulary you gave him or her in previous lesson. So in this way, you can check if the student actually remembers, if the student actually memorized the vocabulary or not. You can also give different cards, you can give pictures or images, and the student will have to say and explain what he or she sees on the image. So there are lots of things what you can do during the warm-up. Your main task as a teacher, as a tutor, is give exercises or ask different questions so your student is going to speak, right? So your student is warming up, your student is getting ready for the class. Only like 5 minutes ago, he or she maybe spoke his or her native language, and now he or she has to switch and speak on another foreign language. Another important point which you need to consider as a teacher: please don't interrupt your student during this warm-up session. So it's important that student has this flow when he speaks, when he builds the sentences, when he tries to tell you something or explain you something or answer your questions. Don't stop and don't correct your student in the middle of his or her speech, right? For example, he can or she can say the sentence and you can hear that he or she made a mistake and you start to correct. Please don't do that. If you want to correct, if you need to say some mistakes, if you need to point into the certain mistake the student made, please do it after his speech or even after the warm-up session. the warm-up part, right? Because it's important that student gets into this flow of speaking, and after you can correct him or her, but please don't interrupt, and it's very important, don't do that. So that was the first component, and let's move to the second one. And the second one is homework check and revision. And I can explain you why I have homework check and revision as one component, because they're like, it's homework check and revision should be two separate, but no, I put them as the one. Homework check, why I put it into the lesson plan. I know some teachers, they check the homework in advance. For example, student can send the homework before the class, and teacher can check the homework, and they can discuss it a little bit during the class, and that's it. Personally, I always asked my student to send me the written component before the class, couple hours before the class, so I can check their writing, like essays or different other writing exercises. But I always check the grammatical exercises with them during the class, your own preferences as a teacher. But please don't check your homework. For example, student will always have answers, and you will tell him or her the answers, and they will just put the check mark, or if it's wrong, just, okay, that's wrong, mistake, and go like further. Please don't do that. Please pay attention to the mistakes which student made. How you can do that. So let's say student made a mistake in one of the grammatical structures where he had to fill in the blank and he put the wrong word, the wrong verb, for example. Don't tell him straight away the correct answer. Try to ask him, why do you think the answer which you choose is correct answer? Why do you think it's wrong, and why do you think it's correct? So try to help them to find the answer. Try to help them navigate them why they actually make this decision, why they made this choice. But don't tell them. Don't tell them straight away, no, that's not correct, the right answer is this. No, that's not correct, the right answer is this. No. Try them to understand their own mistakes, because you as a teacher, you as a tutor, you're not going to be around always. It's important that students can find and identify their mistakes by themselves, without you pointing them and saying the wrong or correct answer, right? So do that when you do the homework check. And why I put revision together with a homework check, because you can actually see if your student didn't do well the homework. You would need to go through the homework, through the topics, through the exercises again. You need to revise the material based on the homework assessment, right? So you see that, and if the homework is not good, please revise the material again. And sometimes you need to restructure your lesson plan because the student didn't understand the material from the previous class. And you're not going to give him or her a new material. Like, what is the reason to give a new material if he or she didn't understand the material from the previous class? So revision is very important, and that's one of the reasons why I have the homework check and revision together, because they are kind of correlated. You're going to spend the extra 15 or 20 minutes on the revision based on their performance of the homework, right? So usually together, warm up, homework check, and revision ideally would take maximum 20 minutes. 20 minutes, okay, or 30 minutes, no more than half of your class, no more than 30 minutes. It's important. Please remember that when you structure and when you plan your class. Then we move to the third component, and the third component is the presentation of new material. So you check the homework, you revise the material, everything is fine. Let's move to the next stage. Let's learn something new. And it's your work as a teacher to present a new material. It can be anything, whatever you want. New vocabulary, new skills, new writing skills. Maybe you're going to practice new speaking skills, or how to work with a text, how to write an academic essay. So you're going to give a new vocabulary, new grammatical structures. So whatever you want to give your student, but it's supposed to be a new material, and you present this new material to the student. It's very important part of your class. For you as a teacher, the way you explain, it's very important how a student is going to understand it and understand this topic, to understand the subject. After your presentation, we move to the last stage, and to the last component. It's actually a practice and production stage. I think it's pretty straightforward. So after the presentation of new material, student will practice this new material, and student will try to apply the knowledge which you have just presented to the real life examples, let's say. Try to be more creative in the practice and production stages. Use different movies, like short movies, TV shows. Try to find different formats. Try to be interactive. Use visuals. Use audio formats. Be creative and try not to give just a regular worksheet with exercises, filling the blanks, matching the headings or something like that. Try to be more creative and try to make your student being interested in the subject, being interested in the topic, and try to also adapt this knowledge to the real life examples, because it's important that when a student comes out of your classroom, he can actually apply this knowledge outside of a classroom setting, right? That's it for today. Let me know if you have any questions, or maybe you want me to go deeper in more details for every stage which I have just mentioned, or maybe you want to know more about the lesson plans, maybe you want to know about the material, how to create your own worksheets, your own activities. So let me know in the comments below what you would like to see more. And thank you for watching, and see you later. Bye bye.